I'm not going to go through the meat letter piece by piece. We could probably spend an hour just doing that. All I wanted to do here is highlight the information, and there's a lot of it in the meat letter that applies to using Meat Manager. I think it's a great idea if you're, it's particularly if you're an admin official, to be in on the development of the meat letter. I personally, most of my mates that I work with, I'm starting from square one with the host and helping to develop or at least check over the meat letter. But when we get to the meet and everything is sort of said and done with our setup, it's very important that it matches what's in the meat letter. The meat letter is basically the Bible for the meat, I've heard it's called. So you don't want to have to, go to the meet and have say final set up in a particular format, but it's different than it is in the meat letter because virtually everyone else is going off the meat letter. So here again, of course, we have, name of the meet, dates, different times, age groups, AM, PM, so forth. Of course, type of meet, what course it's in, whether it's prelims, finals, time finals, or both, or whatever the meet may offer. More description on the particular finals, how many finals you have in different age groups, slow to fast, or fast to slow, relays, how they may be run. This particular meet is the Planet Swim meet we had this summer, and I just chose this one because it's a fairly, I guess you might call it complex meet, at least locally in terms of how it's laid out with prelims and finals to give us opportunities to look at that as well as some and split sessions. I think we had 8 sessions for this meet as well. And relays, we've got, some heats are in the finals, some heats are in the prelims. All that needs to be known for Meet Manager. Location, of course. There's language in there that Florida Swimming wants us to include as well. And by the way, I know there are some of you online who are not so much USA affiliated, more high school, summer league, whatever. So just bear with us. A lot of this, once we get in the program, will apply to you. But obviously, there's no meet letter for, say, a high school meet or like a dual meet or maybe a summer league meet. How many lanes will be used in competition, what kind of timing equipment will be in use, who's eligible to swim in the meet, if there's seating, different seating configurations, maybe sometimes for a distance event, it might be a little different, and we'll get into that. Whether there needs to be positive check-in, as listed here, sometimes for relays and distance events. How finals protocol is just how the finals are going to be laid out. And in this case, we had, for example, I think it was one final, a final for 11 and 12s, two finals for 13, 14, 15 and over. We'll show you how that's done. Scratching, of course, in a prelim final meets, that needs to be stipulated. This particular meet, we just let anyone scratch until 30 minutes after prelims for those sessions. Entry limits will be put into Hy-tek. Entry limits for the meet, yes, but also, and probably more importantly, entry limits for each session so that when you send the entry file out to the coaches and they're trying to enter, let's say in a particular session, and they try to enter someone 4 events and the limit is 3, they're going to get notified that they've over entered the athlete. Deck entries are really important as far as admin goes. They can be a bit of a hassle, to be honest. It can take up some of your valuable time in the last hour or so before the meet, but sometimes it's great for the athletes to be able to do that. And those are typically open to athletes who are already in the meet, uh, can't just walk in and enter the meet. They need to be verified as USA swimmers, which we do usually a few days before the meet starts. Entry fees will also go in Meet Manager. That allows the meet director to find out how much each team owes. Entry deadline, of course, is huge. You hope everyone meets that, but everybody kind of has their own style for how to deal with entries that may come in a little bit late. Meet size limitations. For this meet, we reserved the right to have it at 500. We ended up, I don't know what it was, 670 or something ridiculous. So we did reserve the right, we just didn't do it. So, but you need to have that in there in case the meet does get too big. Fortunately, we were able to fit it all in for the summer championships. Officials, referee Billy, second place, tied for second place in our trivia contest just before we got started. Congratulations. Sometimes the referee needs to be brought in if decisions are to be made. For example, recently we had a meet that was scheduled to go one session. We had to switch it to two. Pretty big decision to make a week before the meet, so we had to bring in the referee for that situation. Awards, which will also apply to Hy-tek. As far as High Point awards go, printing labels for individual event awards, relays, and team awards. Scoring, pretty standard there, and that's going to be input into Meet Manager as well. And some of these other things are, once again, come from Florida Swimming. They're required to be in there, medical, safe sport, camera zone, etc. And then, of course, your event schedule, all your event numbers. Really important when you're putting this information in Hy-tek that you check, double check, triple check, because if it's off and you send out a entry file that has incorrect information, then good luck fixing that, as entries start to come in. So, all right, so that's meet letter, and we'll go now to, let's see if I can get Hy-tek. Hy-tek should be up. Hy-tek's up, everybody?
No.
No? Well, let's see. Screen sharing. What's on the screen now?
Meet letter still.
Huh. Well, we'll try. Okay, I do need to share that then. Pardon me.
You might have to stop sharing, do it again.
Yeah,
You might have shared just the application instead of the screen. There you
There
go.
you
Is
go.
it up now?
Yeah.
It's up?
Yeah.
I make mistakes so I can have something to drink. Right. Okay, so first thing we're going to do is we're going to look at creating our database, and which is sort of the foundation of everything that we're doing here. There's two ways, basically, if you want to call it that, to create a database. One is from scratch, where it's the first time you've had a meet, your first annual, whatever, swimming invitational. And another way, and much easier way, is when you have a meet that has been held in the past, such as an annual meet, and you already have a database from the year before. So if we're doing it from scratch, we're going to go to File, we're going to go to Open or New, and we're just going to name the database. And obviously you want to name that something to do with your meet. In this case, I just put clinic at the end of it.
Hey,
But
we can't
the main data.
see what you're doing. We see like you're in the run the meet screen on our screen.
Oh, okay. Okay. But this is not that important. Let me go back to run. But yeah, you just got a window that comes up where you create your file. Thank you, Billy. Let me go back to run, make sure we're okay. You got that?
God, I can tell you
Yeah.
what's happening. You need to share your whole screen, not your window. It won't
Okay.
demonstrate that pop-up that you're getting.
All right.
You choose the option to share your whole computer or whatever, that first one, rather than the window.
Entire screen.
Yep.
Great. All right. So let me just go back, and if I open that again. Thank
There
you,
you go.
Jacob. Lifesaver.
Sorry,
Okay.
I
You
have
good?
that issue on Zoom a lot.
Thank you very much. Okay. So we're just going to name our database there, and put it in. I'll come back to this, but we'll put it in our meet folder for this particular meet. Now, if we already have the meet, we just go find that database on our computer and open that. And then once we've opened that, we do a save as, just like you would do, say, with a Word document. It's just creating another copy of that, but you do want to make sure that you rename it. Okay. Don't use say in this case, the Summer Champs from 2024. So just rename it 2025, and it's just about good to go. Now, obviously, we've got a lot of stuff in there that we've got to get rid of, but there's a lot of stuff that we want to keep. So to get rid of the stuff we don't want, we're going to go purge, and we're going to remove the data selectively. And so what that allows us to do, and there's a lot of different things that can be done here, but I'm going to go sort of the most typical route. We're for just a typical local meet. We're going to click in this section here, and we're going to remove the teams and the athletes, entries, results, and relays from the year before. We would not want to, unless we had a change in events, we would not want to remove any of these, assuming they're all the same, especially events and sessions, because events creating all the events, if you have 100 events in a meets, can take a little while. Okay. So let's say we've got our new database up. It's empty, so to speak, but with a lot of the settings that we had from last year. Then we'll actually be directed to the Meet Setup screen, which is under Setup, Meet Setup. And here and just putting in the basics for the meet name, location, excuse me, zip code, so forth, start date of the meet, end date of the meet, age update, which for USA Swimming is typically the first, all the time, first day of the meet, and then entry open date and entry deadline. Those two there, the open date and the deadline, it's not like, you can't enter past that particular date if it's not correct or whatever. It's just more informational purposes for whoever has the database, or maybe that'll even transfer over in the events file. ID format, USA Swimming, or be other if it's high school, college, summer league, whatnot. Your LSC if it's a USA meet. Here, Grace, of course, is Florida. Default touchpads at both ends if you're running long course and you have pads at both ends. Class would be age group. You got high school, college, masters, other options. Timers connect to this computer. This would be a situation if you, for example, at Ocala, we have two courses going on at the same time. You can call them boys course, girls course, whatever they may be. But they often run those meets with just one computer, one meet manager operator, and that's how you'd set that up. Meet type is typically standard. There can be divisions. An example of divisions would be my son was swimming in college, and he had a meet in Charlotte. It was a conference meet, but it was not just his conference, it was another conference as well. So they all swam together in prelims, but in finals, they had A and B finals for his conference, and then A and B finals for the other conference. So in that case, they needed to set up divisions to score everything separately and kind of keep those meets apart. I don't do much of that, but it's a function there. Meet style is typically standard unless you get into high school, college, two-team duels where you can have kids placed in specific lanes according to their team. The course of the meet, usually either long course or short course yards. And then DQ codes, the custom DQ codes is the default for USA Swimming, like whatever's current. And that usually works fine. You can adjust that if you need to, if you want to go into the program and change your codes around. And then the time adjustment method is always on FINA rules. Okay. Next, we'll go into events and sessions. By the way, as I'm remembering this, I am going to put this presentation online. It will be at my website, splashtiming.com, probably in a day or two. I'll have it broken up by chapters or segments. So if you have to miss a certain part, last 10 minutes or whatever, you can refer to that. All right. So events and sessions, a pretty important section here. Once again, if you're going from scratch and you open this up, you're not going to really see very much. But in this case, the events are already there. And this is a great view of sort of everything you need to know about your event schedule or your event setup. So if you had nothing here from scratch, you would just click on Add, and it would give you the event screen. This is for event 1, which is a prelims girls 11 and over 200 free in this meet. So, we're putting in the event number, whatever you want that to be, whether it's an individual or relay, gender. And if you click on Alt Gender, once you're done with this screen, you click OK, it's going to carry everything over into event 2. And so you won't have to do a thing for Heat 2. The only difference is that it's boys instead of girls, and then you can just go on to event 3. Saves you a good bit of time. Age group, here is, since it's an 11 and over event and we don't have that particular age group listed, we click on custom and we put in our age group here. In this case, 11 and over, you just leave this blank. If it's 12 and under, you would put 12 in this little box here, leave this open, or you could put 0 and it will automatically give you that it's 12 and under custom. Distance of the race, stroke, medley would be for medley relay or for individual medley. Note would be, for example, we had a summer league meet. It was for a developmental league. They had special events for developmental kids, handicapped kids. So if I put developmental in there, it'll say, it'll say, excuse me, 10 and under, 25 free developmental. So it's clear that that's the purpose for that event. Our rounds are going to be typically either time finals or prelim finals. We don't really have much of prelim, semis, and finals around here. And let's see, then back down here to the left, round one, prelims or time finals, our number of lanes, and that would be standard for the meet. Now, let's say we have a couple events for some reason. I don't know. We want to put more kids, get kids swimming more and more lanes for those events. We can do that individually per event, but this will just set it up as eight for the whole meet. It's not very often in a meet that you're going to have different numbers of lanes in prelims or time finals. It might be different between prelims and finals. For example, in the Holloman meet, we go 10 lanes in the prelims and 8 lanes in the finals. Sign lanes is almost always standard. Your heat order is very important. Do you want to run the meet slow to fast, which is more common, but a lot of meets do like to run fast to slow. Multi-age group, that's very often used, and that's a situation where we want, for example, let's go back. Well, actually, this event, let's say it's prelim final, but let's just take it as a time final. Let's just say we want to swim it 11 over 200 free as a multi-age group event. We would put in all the 11 overs would be seated together and swim together as one event. However, we want scoring and results to be broken up into various age groups. In this case, for prelims, we broke it down to 11, 12, 13, 14, 15, and over. What you see here, I'll go ahead and jump on this while it's in front of us, this is the number of final heats per age group. We had one final, which was an A final for the 11 and 12. We had an A and B final for 13, 14, and then an A and B final for 15 and over. So that's where you tell the program how to make your heat sheet for finals. A lot of the stuff you make that in order to create a finals heat sheet, it happens here. It doesn't so much happen later on. Later on, we'll seed and we'll process scratches. But other than that, it's all right here in the event setup. Okay. Some of these others I'll skip over. We don't use them much. Obviously, scoring events important. And make sure that is checked. And we'll set up scoring a little bit later. Entry fee, also want to make sure, in this case, $8.50 for a prelim final event, $5.50 is the max for a time final event. You might want to check manual seed, because if it's, say, a 1500, 800, 1650, whatever, where we see that after checking in the swimmers on deck, we would not want to see that with the other events. We would wait until typically the morning of that particular event. And then where your pads are here, and then also giving it some information for the finals, number of lanes in the finals. Heats in the finals, I just have listed as 1, but it's by age group. So the multi-age group designation where we had 1 or 2 finals is going to override that. Always want to make sure we have this checked, A final, B final style. What that means is that when you run your finals, typically the scoring might be from 20 to 11, if I'm not mistaken, in the A final, and 9 to 1 in the B final if you're scoring 16. If that is unchecked, what it's going to do, it's going to take all 16, score them by time, and we can't do that. If you win the console of the B final and you're 9th place, you can't place higher than that or score more points than that. The highest you can get is 9th. So that the default in your program is going to have that check, but just to make sure it's important, you do have that if you're having a prelim final meet. Okay. All right. Next up, we're going to be creating. And once again, this is a great view. Once you're done with all that, you can look over this. You can see, check your age groups, your boys, girls alternating, make sure that that works. Your distances, your strokes, your fees, whether it's finals or time finals or prelim finals. Your AB setup for finals, how many lanes you have. This would be 8 prelim, 8 finals. The seating, whether you're scoring, multi-age, manual seed, so forth. So it's all right there for you. Now, in sessions, this is important because a couple of reasons. We're gonna run timelines off of this. And then a lot of your heat sheets and so forth are printed by session. But this just breaks it down time-wise particularly. And also when we're setting up sometimes scoreboard files and whatnot, we do that a session at a time. So same way as you would with events, you would add to create a session. It'll just ask you for some information here, session titles, day, start time, interval. Interval is interesting because that basically determines how accurate your timeline is going to be. And I've learned that with USA meets older kids, probably 15 to 20 seconds is a good timeline. When you get into the younger kids, 10 and unders, that's more like 25 to 30 seconds. Summer League, finding around 35 seconds or so with the real little ones who aren't used to getting on the block or whatever. Um, but as you do more and more of this, you'll start to get a feel for what works. Tiago,
Hey, can you explain what that interval really means realistically for the swimmers in the water? What that 20 seconds interval means, what that 35 or 40, whatever that is from the
the
start?
where it says interval 20.
Hmm. Is it when
Okay,
they touch the pad and then you got 20 seconds, or is it for restarting the system again? Can you just give a little bit more context there, please?
sure. Yeah, that is the amount of time from the conclusion of a particular heat until the start of the next heat. Now, this doesn't affect timing or anything in that regard. This simply is used for the timeline. So I'm trying to put a number in there that will give us the most accurate timeline possible. And so whether that's 20 seconds or 40 seconds or 10 seconds has no effect whatsoever on the competition or how Meet Manager is being run. It's simply going, when we create that session timeline or the timeline that goes in the heat sheet, which is actually by heat, it uses the information I put in there, in this case 20 seconds, to calculate when each heat's going to start or when each event's going to start. So it's just for information purposes. Does that make sense? All good? Okay. And then extra backstroke interval, its standard is 15 because in those cases, someone needs to get out of the water usually, and then the next heat has to get in the water. So that takes an extra 10 or 15 seconds. Chase starts are when you have um, a situation with swimmers starting at both ends, anything 100 meters and over. So you start one race at one end. When they're almost done at the other end, you're starting the opposite end. So that number is actually going to be a negative. Common would be like negative 10 seconds. So that's actually going to speed up or decrease the the time between your heats. And so your session would run a little bit faster. Diving time has to do with if you have diving in the meet that has nothing to do with swimming. Now, also here we've got this is where it's important to put in the numbers so coaches don't over enter. In this case, they could swim 3 individual events per session, and then the relay, and then that gave them a total of 4. For the 10 and unders had a different, I believe they had a different limit. I think they could do more events than those in prelims and finals, so we had to make sure and include those for the 10 and under sessions. And so to populate this side of the session schedule, we simply, these are in yellow because they've already been moved over into a particular session. But normally they would not be, and we would just click on them one at a time to put us over into this particular session. And then if we want to include any breaks, let's say after the 4 IM, you want to take a 5-minute break, you would just type a 5 here. Sometimes we have timers going back and forth, which takes a few minutes. So we include 2 minutes or 3 minutes in there as well, all in an effort to have a most accurate timeline. Okay. All right. Now to create the entry file for the coaches, we'll go back to the file menu and we'll go to export. And this is, once again, once we've completely finished and double checked and triple checked all of our events, export, and we'll go to events for TM, which is not necessarily team manager, but Hy-tek wants you to have team manager. But that'll create an events file for any uh, team management software, whether it's Team Unify, Swimtopia, Team Manager, whatnot. Um, And let's see if it'll actually do that here. No, it's not going to let me do some things just because we've already had the meet, but basically just go through a couple steps. It'll create the file and then you could save it to your computer and then you could ship that out. Meet setup, more specifically, going down here. We'll come back to Meet Mobile a little bit. Seating preferences, you just want to look through that. One thing that we often use in the bigger meets with prelims and finals is when we're doing circle seating in the prelims, and that's where the last 2 or 3 heats, usually 3, will be seated. Fastest swimmer in the last heat, second to the fastest swimmer in the second to last heat, and then the next fastest in the third to last heat, and then going back to the last heat for the next one. But distance events 400 and up are usually only do that through the last 2 heats rather than the last 3 heats for under 400s. Some other choices there. If you have exhibition kids, you maybe want to see those last and whatnot. So I won't spend too much time on that. Also, this is where if you have dual meets, maybe you have, whatever, Catholic high school against Baptist high school, and Catholic is going to take the odds. You would just move them into these lanes, and Baptist would take the evens, and that would allow you to print the heat sheet, where you have that sort of dual meets set up. And Masters has its own way of doing things. We won't go into that too much tonight. All right, then we'll go into report preferences. And this is just where you set up, how do you want it to look on the psych sheet or heat sheet or results, whatnot. Different ways you can have the name shown, whether you want middle initials, first name, then last name, or vice versa. Um, you can read through that before you get to a meet to kind of, once you print out a psych sheet or heat sheet, if something doesn't look right, you can always change that. Also, you'll run into, when you get to the meet, you'll get printer options. Hooking up your printer, you'll just tell it which printer you have here. If you want multiple copies, without having to set that every time, you can do that there as well. You can set up headers, footers, whatnot. We'll come back to the footers in just a little bit. Okay, then we'll go to entry and scoring preferences. And here again, a lot of these things will not apply, but it's more of it how it is specific to your meet. An example might be maximum scores per team per event. I believe that happens in high school sometimes. You can't score more than, say, 4 kids in an individual event. Although you could probably enter more, but these are things that just take a glance over if you're, and some other
It's also in
specifics
college
about
too.
college. There you
College
go.
dual meets, yeah.
Okay, very
Depending
good.
on how many lanes. If it's 6 lanes, it's the top 2. If it's 8 or more, it's the top 3 per team. And I
Great.
almost had the athletic director get on my case about it.
Okay. Thank you,
He
Janice.
didn't like me scoring 3 people instead of 5.
Right. Okay. So then we'll jump to, let's see, scoring setup. This is where you put in your points for individual and relays. Once again, we're going back to the meet letter, looking up to see what it is and including those there. We have entry fee surcharges. Once again, it's important that, and you're in charge of sort of telling people what they have to pay for the meet. So it's important to get that right. Now, in this particular box, most USA swimming meets have an athlete surcharge. And this particular meet had a $15 athlete surcharge, but it also had a $3 heat sheet charge. So adding those together, $18. That's going to apply to every athlete in the meet. Now, you remember the event charges are in the event screen. Okay, so those are separate. Team surcharge is not typically used, nor is facility surcharge. It may be listed as that in the meet letter, but what we're concerned about is having each athlete charged a particular amount overall and then a particular amount per event. So this is the way it would be set up to include both that heat sheet fee and the overall athlete fee, whatever it's called in the meet letter. And then a really neat option here is actually called options. And this is where if we want to make global changes to a number of things, we can do it here. if we have it all set up to 8 lanes, and we find out, oh man, we can use 10. It'll save us a lot of time. We need to do that. You can go in here and you can change the number of lanes for prelims to 10. You just type in 10, click. Do you make sure you want to do it? Yes. And that's before it is seated, of course. You do the same thing for finals. If you want to change the entry fees for whatever reason, you could do that here. You don't have to go back in every event and do that. If you want to change fast to slow to fast, you could do that here. So yeah, just some good options. High schoolers can replace their school year. I do this every year with a high school team. I want to change the ninth graders to 10th grade, 10th to 11th, 11th to 12th. So I can do that pretty, not, I'll do this in Team Manager, but not in Meet Manager. Dan, you might need to unmute. Dan,
Apologies. I'm on a foreign computer, on my wife's computer. I'm not very quick.
that's okay.
Um, Scott, who determines all this? The host, the host facility, as well as on an earlier screen, you know, slowest to fastest, fastest to slowest, event sequence, et cetera, et cetera.
Right. It just depends on the meet. And I would say in most cases, there's a head coach who is making these decisions. Um, and it's really just their preference in a lot of cases. For example, when we start a meet, I work with, say, swim rides a good bit. And sometimes coaches, they don't want to do this, or they'd rather have someone else. And but they may want to have, well, let's have 50s, 100s, and 200s, but let's not go beyond that. So then it's a matter of sort of sitting down, listening to the events that you want to have, um, and then organizing them so that it will fit. For example, if you're having 50, 100s, and 200s in a meet, you don't want to have the 50 free and then have the 50 back right after it, and then have the 100 free right after that. All very popular events. So you want to sort of organize it so that you've got 50s, 100s, 200s, maybe alternating to a certain degree. Strokes are mixed so that you're not having a 50 breast and followed by a 100 breast. Um, so yeah, just something that sort of makes sense that will benefit the swimmers as best you can. As far as the things like seating, once again, all personal preferences. What time you want to start the meet? Do you want to do one session or two? These are host preferences. And so in admin, you may not be involved in that at all, or it could be that you're involved from day one. Just depends. And some places probably bring in the referee as well to help them make those decisions.
Got it. Thank you.
Okay. All right. And then last in this section is about the meat backup. While you're going through this process and building a meat, and not just this part of the process, but particularly when you get into seeding and then of course during the meet, you want to run backups and multiple backups. You can't run too many. And that's simply going into file and then backup and then just a few steps there, you'll end up creating a zip file and then have it somewhere off your computer on the cloud. I always like to send right before the meet, send one to the meet host so that somebody else has it in case I get hit by the school bus or whatever they say. Um, but yeah, it prohibits you. I was at a meet one time in Ocala, and the woman I was working with, incredible on Hy-tek, been doing it for years. She just happened to have a moment where she hit the wrong button under purge, and it deleted all the results in the whole session. And we were starting finals after this particular session in like an hour, and it was not comfortable. So we didn't make a backup through that session. So had we done that, we could have been fine in 2 minutes, but we had to go back and replace all the times that were purged. So yeah, I may get to by the time I end of the meet, I may have 15 or 16 backups that I've made all the way through the meet. Um, and restore is just the process of when you're working in a particular database and you have a reason to take one of your backups and bring it back in to override what you're currently doing. That would be a restore function, but I'm not able to probably go through that right here. Okay. Entries and seating. To create the entry file for the coaches, you'll go File. You'll go, I think I started to do this earlier, but maybe too soon. Oh, I'm sorry, this is Import. So once you've sent out the entry file to the coaches that we talked about a little bit ago, they'll do their thing in their team management computer and send it back to you. Then you will save it to your computer. You will import entries. Sometimes they send a roster. Usually that's a good idea. Like in a high school meet, for example, if they're not sure who's going to be on the relays or what, they'll send a roster file so that if I have to go add that person during the meet into a relay or last minute entry, they didn't think they were coming, then they could. This is like an informal dual meet or something. They'll be in the system. I won't have to add them to the system. But typically, it's just the entry file. Just click there, and it will bring the file into that database where you can do some further work. Now, it's really important from an organizational perspective here. This is kind of a break from Meet Manager, but to create a folder and file structure, particularly when you're running multiple meets. And you can do that anywhere on your computer. Typically, what I do is Swim Meets 8 folder is for, Hy-tek Meet Manager 8. It just comes with Hy-tek. Just pick any file you want. You could just call it Meets. And I'll usually keep 2 years worth of meets on here just because I'm constantly having to go back to a previous year for either a backup or a reference. And then for those particular meets that are for that year, these are, for example, the club meets I've done this year, or a few of them. And then, for example, this is the Summer Champs meet we're actually in. And you can see there's a lot of files just for that one particular meet. There's entry files, there's files from Florida Swimming, there's heat sheets, there's psych sheets, there's results, there's awards, check-in sheets, the database itself, which is this one here, most important, and everything in between. So you can imagine just kind of, oh, I'm going to save these results on my display or in documents or whatever. You'd probably go nuts trying to find this kind of stuff. So just having it in its place so you know where it's going to be can be extremely helpful. Once the entries are sent in by a particular team, as soon as possible, I like to go to reports and create an entry list. And let's just say we can do it for one team, Bermuda, and all events. And I'll usually click on athletes and relays, which will show all the kids with their events and all their relays as well. And then I'll just take this particular report and save it as a PDF and ship that back to the coach. Now, I don't know if they read it or not, but at least it's a confirmation that the entry has been received in the first place. And if they want to go over and check, everything that is on that list, if there's ever any con or discussion during the meet, oh well, I'm pretty sure I entered them in this. You can always go back and look at the entry list, and actually you can actually look into their file that they sent to you to see if they were actually in that event. Also, kind of jumping back, well, no, not so much. We're required to send to Florida Swimming a registration report, and this allows them to feed it into their swims database to ensure that everyone is registered with USA Swimming. And more often than not, there are several names, kids that are not up to date. They're either not registered, they haven't completed their, I don't want to say it's APT course for when they turn 18. Um, they had a flex membership, but they need to renew that. They may be required to swim unattached and no relays in this particular meet. So that report actually is done in, I think there's a couple ways to do it, but under File, Export, and then USA Swimming Registration. Click there, it'll create the file. You send that to Vanessa at Florida Swimming. They usually get it back same day. And also all of the coaches, meet hosts, directors, whatever, will get that report as well. It's the if a team does not have any issues, they will not be sent that particular form, and then they're required to resolve all that prior to the start of the meet. Okay. Just a couple of menu items here. This is where all our teams are stored for the meet. If you happen to need to go in and something needs to be changed, an abbreviation or whatnot. We had a summer league meet this year. Planet Swim has two summer league teams. So they are working out of the Planet Swim, or we're working out of the Planet Swim Team Unify. And so their entries were both exported as PSA. So when it got into Meet Manager, I had to pull one in and change it to its other abbreviation, which was NOC. And then the other team I had to change to Argyle, which was ARG. So run them as two separate teams. And then when the meet was over, the team manager could only, Team Unify could only accept a PSA results file. So I had to change them back to PSA and send them to the coach to upload. So this is where you would do, those types of changes, which don't typically happen in a club meet. And then the athletes menu, a little more information there. This is all what comes in from the coaches. And for each athlete, we'll go with Brennan here. Last name, first name. Once again, if you need to change the birth date, it was off by a day, you would do it there. This shows their USAID number, their team. This is also what you would see if you were, for some reason, adding a swimmer. All this would come up blank, and you would have to type all that in. Gender, and then once you put in gender, it'll give you the events that they are eligible for. And once again, this is nothing that you would need to type in a typical meet. All this in the seed times and so forth would come in automatically. Okay. Next up, we have a relay menu. There's actually two different relay menus. This one is on the main screen. Once again, all information that is imported automatically. And here again, it lists all the different relay events and the teams in that particular event, A, B, C, D, whatever, entry times. We have seeded the meet, so they have been given a heat and a lane here. And then this is where if you need to make any changes in that relay, the Logan is going to go in fourth and Caleb third. So we switch that. You can just do that by dragging. You can click a name over here. If I wanted to get rid of Caleb, I could just double click. It'll take him out, and I could put in, say, Noah, just drag it into his place, or I could click it and it would go into that empty spot. If you need to add a relay, you could just click on the team here. It'll ask you if you want A, B, C, D, whatever, and then you'll need to put the names in for that particular relay. And then I mentioned there's also another convenient place to do that, and that is in the run menu. Run menu. This little thing's going to come up when you're not connected to another, the console. It's kind of annoying, but you just have to get out of that every time. And so yeah, you also have the relay menu that's in the run menu, which is here. Pretty much serves the same purpose, but if you just don't want to get out of the run menu, you can jump into this screen, and it's going to pretty much show you for that particular event you're on. Um, what was different than that? I'm sorry, I clicked on the wrong one. Relays are, I got to be on a relay to do that. So I'm on event 9, 400 medley relay, and then this will come up relay name. So this is I'm just putting in names from the entry cards. There it is. So for that particular event, and it's got them listed by lane here as well. So whatever heat I'm on is going to show up right there. Tiago, yes sir.
Yeah, so for relays, and the coaches can change swimmers all the way to the block, right?
Yes.
At what point, what's the check and balance from the AO perspective to when the names will be updated or changed, or the relays just happen unless you're told that the names change, there's no need to come here and make the change?
Here again, it's going to differ per meet. And the way we typically run is that when we have relay cards and they make changes on that, they can change anything on the card up to the start of the race. All right. So actually, when they're called to the blocks, if they're sitting there scribbling, I mean, we're not that technical on it. We're actually not so technical that, if there was a mistake and the card got to us, oh, he swam breast and whatever free. I'll make that change. But by the letter of the law, it's supposed to be right when you get to the blocks. So then that card is picked up and brought to us typically right after that heat concludes, and then I'll make that change, or someone will make that change in the system. Um, so yeah, anytime up till the start of the race. Did I answer that properly, or is there?
Yeah, yeah.
That's
So, but
okay.
it's not like you're checking for the names unless you're told that there's changes to who swim, or if they swim a different leg of the relay. Other
Yeah,
than
when those cards come in, depending on once again the meet, there are meets where the teams will pre-enter their relays. So on the cards, those four names are printed, they're in order, everything's fine, and I'm just flipping through those cards, hoping the next one doesn't have any changes because I like to I like to go fast. But then
Mhm.
let's say I get to a card and I see some penmanship on there, and it has arrows and said, well, we moved the third swimmer to the fourth and fourth to the third. Oh, and by the way, we scratched out Sam Jones and put in, Johnny Williams. Then I have to address that at that time. Okay. So, yeah, from an admin perspective, you're just waiting until you get those cards, and then you're going into the relay menu and making those changes. Okay. All right. Let's go look at some reports here. Back into our. Mhm. All right, we'll look at exceptions report is kind of interesting. This is run really once you get all the entries in, is a good time to run it. And what this does is it informs you if anyone has exceeded an entry limit. So typically you might choose the whole meet to do this. Let's see if they have select. Might do all sessions, so I'll select all. And then if there is this, you remember earlier we had um, session limits, but this is actually the meet limit, but it's the meet limit for 10 and unders. So it gets kind of complicated here to do exceptions reports for everybody, but it can be done. But in this case, it was for 10 and unders, and max entries was 9 for the meet for total events, 7 and then 2 relays. So anyway, there's a process to allow you to check for over entered athletes. And then in this case, it's a good idea to inform the coach and they can let you know, what events that they can remove from that particular athlete. Happens pretty frequently. Psych sheet is just under reports. And this is when you get your first good look at what's going on. Typically, we'll run this for the whole meet and select all here. And there's a lot of options you can do. If you're just going to view the heat sheet, go triple column, so you're not going through a bunch of pages. We don't want double space. Including the psych sheet, entry times, yes. Line for results, come back to that. You may or may not want to put athletes there, but what what this helps to do is allows you to scan it for times that are just off the charts. And this is a pretty big event here, 100 and whatever freestyle, 200 freestylers. Um, but typically, if you have times that are off, it's especially on the fast end. If someone here has a 106, you know that it's an error on the coach's part. It might have come from a meet that got put in their computer by mistake. And so, you can catch a lot of stuff just by looking at the fast times. If it's an error down on the other end, not that big a deal. Maybe the coach will pick it up as they're reviewing their entries. So this, of course, would be saved as a PDF and sent out to coaches, put on websites or whatever needs to be done there. And like I said, just usually run the whole meet. It's a bunch of pages, bunch of data, but important part of their review process. Okay. Then if we want to run timeline, we go to reports, we go sessions. And there's really two times you can run a timeline, the second one being more accurate. The first is what we might call a preceded timeline. This is where Meet Manager is sort of doing its own work, or like, okay, we're going to go 8 lanes. I'm going to take this group, this group, this group, and once you seed it, though, it's usually just a few minutes difference. But if you need to get an idea of like what time a 10 and under session is going to start, or generally how long the meet's going to take, running a preceded timeline will work just fine. But if we want to just run this one here, click all, we create. And so yeah, we got this session ending at 1:35, at least on this report. Some other important data here is that this tells us how many swimmers we have in warm-ups for this. And so we're able to take that data and use that for our warm-up lane configurations. Now, in this case, it was a long course meet. Just hypothetically, let's say, just, it's easier. Let's say we have this 378 swimmers in a short course meet. Well, we look at that and go, okay, that's 19 swimmers per lane. So if we're going to warm up those 378 at one time, it's going to be 19 per lane. We might look at that and go, oh, maybe that's too many. We need a couple of warm-up sessions. All right. So this allows you to go to here, which is the list of the team. This isn't really showing well, but the number of athletes is this column. So if we're looking for 19 per lane, we'll start with the bigger teams and go, okay, Sporting Jacks 96, that's 5. Okay, they're going to get 5 lanes. Bulls, that's 5 lanes. And then we'll just go down from there. Raleigh 46, 19 per lane, probably going to give them 2 lanes. And just keep going down until we've covered 20 lanes. And then as you get down to the smaller teams, they're going to probably have to combine into different lanes. So that's kind of how we work those massively crazy and complex warm-up and warm-up lane assignments. Usually coaches are great and it works out pretty well. All right, seating. It's just the seating menu here. And this is, all the entries are great. Everything's working, good to go. You can see, I like the idea of seeing the meet all at once. You could do it by event if you wanted to, but I like to sort of finish all the homework. It's ready to go. We're ready to swim. Let's seed the meet. Okay. And it's a very quick and simple process. You're just going to select all the events. If you're on the all events set up here, you just go select all, and it's obviously not going to seed finals events or whatever. And start seeding. It takes about a second, and your heat sheet is ready to go. Then we'll also run lane timer sheets. That will come under reports as well. This is for the timers behind the blocks, and there's different setups we could do here. You can, if you don't, for example, some meets we use 2-button primary, so we don't have to use watch times very much at all. So I'll do continuous, which is where you have, say, lane 1 and all the different races in lane 1 on one page or very few pages. But more often than we'll go 1 event per page. And if we have several heats, if I run that particular one there, we'll show lane 1 first. And these were all the heats. Remember, it was the 200 free that had tons of heats. It will show all of the lane 1 swims, heat 1 through however many 21 heats there. And then once they're done with that, they're picked up, they're brought to the admin table, and then if we need to refer to a backup time, we'll do that. Check-in sheets are used for typically distance events and relays. Maybe save us a heat on those particular events if there are no shows or scratches. And we can do that at least 2 ways. One is through an actual, probably the neatest way is meet check-in for a particular event. Let's just say this event here. And we put this out at admin, and they'll come by and initial or scratch through or whatever they need to inform us of their intention. You can also do this creating a psych sheet in a double space format. Looks a lot like that. Either one works fine. And then let's see, just if it's alternating. If we want to set up Meet Mobile, which I'm not able to do here because the meet's already done, basically in setup, you go to Meet Mobile Publishing, won't let me do it, but it's just some information it's going to ask you in terms of do you want to charge for heat sheets or not? Do you want to do scoring? A couple other things they'll ask you. You have to put your name and date of birth on there, and that sets up the heat sheet in Meet Mobile before the meet starts. Also, you have a choice of whether or not to put the timelines in there, just as you would with heat sheets. You have a choice of whether or not to put your timelines by heat in the heat sheets. And that's pretty much a wrap on column 1. Okay, jumping into run the meet. we have a particular, in the run menu, we have interface as one of our menu items. And this is basically when we're connecting with whatever console we're using for that meet, be it Colorado Timing, Daktronics, Omega, SST. First thing we're going to do is identify that particular timing console. So I think for that meet, we were probably set on Colorado Timing System. 6 or 7 work the same way. And then from there, we go to a little more, oh, come on. Okay, so what we have to do is open the appropriate serial port for the timing console. And the way that is done is we go into, excuse me, wrong one, into Device Manager. And we look under ports. And if it's not showing up, you can go into View and just show hidden files or folders, whatever. But in this particular case, we go to ports, and it's not listed here. Normally, it's a serial to USB cable that goes between the System 6 we use and the Meet Manager computer, and it will say, COM whatever, COM 6, let's say. It's usually a number between 1 and 8. And so we'll go back to that, to the interfaces, open close serial port, and we'll type in that number that is listed, that COM number. And then they'll communicate. You'll get a message saying communication passed, and you're good to go talking back and forth with the Colorado 6. Okay, and then from that point, we want to send the data for the event numbers and event names to Colorado. And once again, this is different for every console. Like SST has a pretty much very different process than this, but we'll just give you an example for this one. You'll go to download events to CTS6, make sure that the console is reset and ready to receive that. You'll hit that and it will automatically program the console as to your event numbers and event names. Okay. So kind of getting into the meat here and pulling in times. We'll go back to our first event here. We're obviously not going to be able to pull in times here, but once everything is good to go and the meet has started, you got a race has already happened. There are 2 buttons here you can use to pull in race times. The most commonly used is get times. All right. So everything's working well. You hit get times, and Meet Manager is going to look into Colorado for that particular event and heat. In this case, event 1, heat 1. And if there has been a race that's been run properly and stored properly as event 1, heat 1, it takes that data and it drops it in here. Okay. Now, this particular race number feature is also works the same way, except that it works on race numbers. Every race, let's say event 1, heat 1, sometimes we run tests on the system before the meet starts. So there may be race numbers that are used to do that. Let's say 1, 2, and 3. So actually your first race might be race 4. And it's important that the console operator writes that down on their heat sheet. So if at some point I need to go back, oh, can you tell me what the race number was for event 1, heat 1? We, have to check something. He'll have that information. So we would just click on that if it lets me. Probably not. Nope, port's not open. And it would just be a little box, and I'd type in 4, and it would bring in, that same data that we had earlier from the get times. Okay. So usually the race number is if something gets a little bit off, maybe the console operator, and it's happened to me before, is on the wrong heat or wrong event, and it's not pulling in the proper times in the get times button. I'll go, oh, look, I think you were on the wrong heat, wrong event, whatever. Can you tell me what that race number was? And you'll go to race number and you'll be able to pull it in even though it wasn't on the right event or heat. Okay. Now we are going to jump into some samples here. And as you see, there's a lot of colors here, and um, they all mean something differently. I don't typically go by the colors so much as I do by the data, but I'll see what I can do here. This is an event that I just created in this database. It was not in the meet, just to give some examples, particularly of situations where the times don't line up very well. Um, in a perfect world, this is all white, not blue, yellow, or green. But particularly when you have equipment that's not functioning all that great, or you have kids that are not activating the pads, or you have inexperienced timers that aren't really hitting the buttons as they should, you'll get some heats that look like this. So I want to go through it just one lane at a time, and we'll look at each situation. Now, lane one, pad time is 105.60. This is a meet where we're running touchpad, we're running two buttons, and typically we'll run one watch with two buttons. Simply because if we have a pad, two buttons, two watches, you have both timers with a button and a watch, and then they got to have the clipboard too, and they don't like to balance that on their head. So, it's too many things. So I feel like one watch is sufficient when we have a good primary system and then the two button backup. So in this case, we got the 105.6 pad. We have 105.54 backup number one, and the second is 105.59. Those backup buttons are within 3/10 of the pad. So that's the break point. If they were not, we get color. So in this case, you look at this and go, okay, everything looks great. Buttons line up with the pad, and it's fine. We just ignore it. It's good. Now in lane two, we have 103.73 pad. We don't have a backup button in one, and in two, we have 107.22. Now the reason we might not have a backup button could be the button's not working, could be a bad connection with the harness, could be the timer didn't know they were supposed to push the button, which happens a lot. And then the backup button being 107, okay, we have a situation here where we have a particular pad time and a button time that are 4 seconds difference, okay? So we have to determine which of these is going to work. And we don't just guess, okay? That's why we have watches, and that's why we also have sort of a fourth system, which is order of finish, if we need to look at that. So if I look at the watch and it says 103.62, okay? I don't put that 103.62 in the backup slot, all right? You just use that for information. We never combine different systems together. Pads are independent of buttons, are independent of watches, okay? A common mistake in admin is to try to average button times with watch times. Don't do that, okay? The lower system just gives us feedback to approve a higher system. The buttons in lane one gave us feedback to approve the pad time. So in this case, if I have a watch time of 103.62, this tells me, oh, this pad is good. And they hit the button late. And there's all kinds of reasons why they might hit the button late. Okay, so we will accept when I go into the screen here to accept it, but it's blue. I'll need to check it because it's not checked yet to use the adjusted time. Okay, but I'll wait to go into that screen until get rid of this until I've kind of looked at the whole heat. Now, next up in lane three, we have 117.45 pad, and then two times 113.87, 113.93. Probably 99% of the cases, because you have two buttons that agree with one another, yet they're 4 seconds slower than the pad, and it is a backstroke event, which happens frequently. Like I said, many cases, it's going to be just take the average of those two buttons. If you're not sure, or there's something that, might throw you off there, you can always check the watch time. But in this case, it's typically going to line up with the 113s. It's very common in backstroke for kids to finish but not activate the pad. Their arm, hand, whatever hits up top. Their body floats in, get an arm on the wall, and then their hip or whatever will hit the pad 4 seconds late. Okay. The yellow, once we go into that screen, it is, we don't have to check anything. It kind of knows, yeah, we need to take those back up. So it's already checked, and we'll just accept the adjusted time in that case. Next up, we have 59.33 pad. We have two buttons, one that verifies the 5946. That's good enough for me. Looks like the 102 was just a late button. Once again, sometimes they're sitting in the chair, they're talking, they're not watching, and all of a sudden they run up and, oh, I forgot it, and they hit it. In certain situations, and maybe even one like this, you can go over to the timer and say, can you explain to me, we had little differences in times, what happened in that previous heat in your lane? And they'll often say, oh yeah, I was talking, I forgot, to get the button. And so they can really explain that before you don't really have to go check any more data for that. Just accept the 50. If you accept the 5933 based on this time here, you would actually click on the question mark. And what that does is change it to K for OK, and you're good to go. Next up, we don't have a pad time. We have one button time. That's it. Definitely in that case, you want to check the watch time. Hopefully it will correlate with the 101.96, in which case you could accept that 101.90, excuse me, 688 as your final or so-called pad time. Lane 6, 104.59. This is really whack, but believe me, whack things happen. 104.59, then you got buttons that are, one of them's 2 seconds faster, one of them's 2 seconds slower. In this case, I would definitely go to the timer and say, what happened? And hopefully get an explanation there. But you will have watches, you will have watch times, you will have order of finish. You see there's a 104, you see there's a 103. That might be able to look at their order of finish and say if the order finish was um, 2 before 6, then you know it's not going to be a 102, assuming that whoever's doing order finish is accurate. Okay. So you're just sort of taking all the data that you have and applying it to a particular situation and sort of figuring out based on the evidence what is going to be the official time. 7 is a no-show. Now, there may have been a swimmer there. We've had situations where we don't get a pad time, we don't get any button times. And I've even in situations where I didn't get a watch time and there was somebody in there. So I had to deal with that. But even with no-shows, we just don't assume that there was nobody in there. Typically, the way we check that, if we're not watching as the heat progresses, um, the referee and starter will typically, at the bottom of their heat sheet for each event, put how many no-shows, how many DQs, etc. We can check that way. I often check with my console operator, who will also mark no-shows on his particular heat sheet. And then if you notice up here in the list of events, you'll have the number of no-shows that are included in any particular event. So all of those should line up. Um, the ref and starter, as hard as they work, they've got 5 things they're trying to do at one time. It can be challenging for them to mark no-shows accurately, and we'll make mistakes as well. So it's good to get sort of multiple data on that if you can, if things aren't lining up particularly. And then lane 8, 32.12 is pad. Obviously, that's a little fast for 100. And then 106 is on the button times. This happens when we have a bad pad or they just don't activate the pad at all at the finish of their race, and then the system is reset. 32.12 is a common split for someone going 106. So I don't even have to check this one. I just realize that that's what it is. When you reset the system and pull in the times, it's giving you the last time that they have hit a pad. So that's why it's giving us 32. But I know, if you get two people hitting buttons and the times are almost exactly together, I just go ahead and take the button times in this case. All right. Any questions on those? Okay. All right. Now we're going to get into a little more fun here. It's called heat malfunction. A heat malfunction happens. Oh, by the way, to make all these adjustments in the times, we went back and we were going to, let's see, we were going to accept the adjusted time. No, we weren't going to. We were just going to okay that one. The yellow times, we were going to accept the backup, let's say. So they're already checked. This was going to be okay. We were just going to okay it. And let's see, we're good. So if we accept the adjusted times, all right, I can look back here and see 103 is what we wanted, 113 is what we wanted, 59, no show, whatever. And this one, we're not good yet. Okay, so I want to go back. We want to accept the 106. So I need to put a check mark there and accept, and we're good. And then I wanted the check mark 103 we want, so we're going to take that check mark off, and 59.3 we want, take that check mark off. And if you don't take them off, it's going to tell you in this column here, you got some issues still. You may just have to go click on the question mark, excuse me, question mark, and turn it to a K. Jeremy,
Hey Scott,
this
does that
might need,
ever happen, or what do you do if you're adjusting the time and it affects the order of finish? Like, um, if you have to go off a button time and it makes someone move from fourth to third, how does that?
that can happen, and I think if you're concerned about that, what you do is check your order of finish. So, you guys have those sheets, you turn them into us. If there's any possibility of places being affected in that case, I mean, it will happen. For example, in this last heat, we had a kid 32.1 or whatever for 50. Initially he might be listed as first place in the heat. Now that doesn't mean really much until now. If I kept that 32 time and I went ahead and scored or listed the event, he would be listed in first place with 32. Obviously, that would be a problem. But as soon as I verify all the times in that screen, the lane adjustment screen, everything is corrected. Everything is corrected to Meet Mobile as well, and good to go. So yeah, the times that come in initially, the places are not going to be right because the times, if there are issues, are going to, some of them are going to be off and it's going to show a different place initially, but once you make all your corrections, the places will line up. That work for you? All good?
Yep.
Okie doke. All right, so in heat malfunction, this happens when we have a situation where the starter starts the race, but the system, the console does not start. Okay, so we still want to have automatic times as much as we can. We just don't want to rely exclusively on watch times. All right, so in this case, I'm going to go show heat malfunction. Now let me actually, I have another event set up for this heat malfunction. Okay, so hypothetically, this event is 100 free. And girls 100 free, actually pretty quick times. Um, and so what I try to avoid doing is when I have a possible heat malfunction, I will not start the console right away. I mean, you could start literally 2 or 3 seconds when you see that didn't start. You could just hit manual start. But what happens there is that the swimmers are going to come in and finish the race. They're going to look up at the scoreboard and see a pretty fast time for them, probably faster than they expected if I only waited 3 seconds. So if their seed time's 55 and they may be hoping to go at 54, but yet I started 3 seconds late, and they're going to look at the board and they're going to get a 52, they're going to be like, oh, I'm excited. I made Olympic trials. Okay. So I like to wait 10, 15, 20 seconds, depending on how long the race is, so that when they do come in and if the times are on the board, they just don't make sense. And then we can make an announcement, the times are not official, etc. So in this case, what I did is I put in these times manually. And this is, say I started the console about 20 seconds late. All right. So we're going to click out here, go to show heat malfunction. All right. So all these times are about 20 seconds too fast, but we don't know really exactly how much. So what we do have data on is the watch time. All right. So what I'll do here is just make up watch times, and I'm doing this for informational purposes, but their watch time, for example, in lane one might be 55.68, right? About 20 seconds. And then I'll go 56.88, and then I'll go 54.09. We'll go 57.67. We'll go 55.43. We'll go 56.89. we'll go 57.89. Let me back that up a little bit. 09, and we'll go 54, 45. All right, so we've got watch times. If you happen to have 2 watches per lane, you're just going to have to do the average of those 2 in your head, or get somebody on a calculator or something to figure out the average of those 2 watch times. All right, so once we do that, we notice here this is the amount of difference between the watch time and the primary time. Then we want to go to accept adjusted. Now, what it's going to do is it does the calculations and tells you based on those 8 lanes that the average adjustment in each of those lanes is 20.07 seconds. Okay. So it's going to use that data to add 20.07 seconds to each of these times. Okay. So if I say continue, yes, if you look down here, these times are going to change to their time. That actually 20, whatever it was, 20.07 is added to each of those pad times. Okay. So it's a little tedious, but it is a better way to determine those times rather than just flat out using watches. I mean, if it's a summer league, low key high school meet, use watch time is fine. But when we get into club meets and we need a little higher degree of accuracy, it's a good tool to have, heat malfunction. Another thing that's helpful when looking at times is looking at splits. So if we look up here, we see cumulative splits. And this is just another set of data, sort of like order of finishes. We've got kids swimming 200 fly. This is probably not the best event because people die at the end. But let's say we've got a 36-second split. Actually, I can put on subtracted splits. We've got a 36, a 42, a 44, a 44. That makes sense, okay? Now, if it were a situation, and I'm aware of this, that nothing extreme happened in the race, and this 200 time for lane 3 is actually 3:35, which would give them a subtracted split of a minute and a half. That's at least some data to tell me something's not right. Maybe they didn't activate the pad. Maybe they did really struggle and have to hold on to the rope for 45 seconds during the last lap. But it does give you data if something is off, and particularly in more like in freestyle events where the splits are going to be relatively similar, except maybe the first one. If something looks way off, then that can alert you to make, if that's going to help you make an adjustment in the race. DQs, very simply here is, I'm not sure why we have one here, but DQ here typically will go along with the explanation of the DQ. So check mark in that column. And then once the DQ slip is in, or it has been called in, or you've been informed, you can simply find the particular code that applies to that DQ. Okay. If we want to combine heats or make some adjustments within the heats, which we do quite a bit, we will go to the Adjust tab here. And number of things can happen. First of all, for combining a heat, let's just say in this particular heat, Nora and Hazel and Abby did not show. Grace is here. Good job getting her to the meet, Dan, if you're still here. All right, so these would be scratched. Now, what we'd want to do in this case, or the referee would make this determination, to move Grace Costello into this empty spot here in lane 8. So if we wanted to scratch Nora, we could just double click, we scratch her, which I won't do here. And then we can take Grace and move her, just a click and move down and drop her in there. Okay. That's going to leave an empty heat here. However, in this situation, we could delete the empty heat, but what that's going to do is change this to be labeled heat 1, 2, 3. Whereas right now they're actually 2, 3, 4. So in this case, we actually don't want to just delete that heat. Just a little tip if this happens to you. Okay. Now let's say they dive in and the coach runs over and says, "Oh, Nora and Hazel got confused. They swam in each other's lane. They swam in the wrong lane. Nora swam in Hazel's lane, vice versa." Excuse me. All right, so what we do is just simply click on Nora, drop her where Hazel is, and they'll switch. Okay. when you're doing relay names, it helps to do that as well. If kids are just switching, you can just move and drop. Let's say that we had a swimmer who, for whatever reason, legal or not, um, is gets we want to get them up on the block to swim the whatever event this is. Okay. Um, we go to show eligible athletes. Let's say it's Tori, and we want to put her in lane 2 of heat 1. We just drag her and drop her there. Okay. And she gets to swim. That way, when the times come in, it'll match the number of swimmers that were in the race. Okay. So really, any adjustments we have to make within a heat, between heats, whatever it may be, we can do in the adjust menu. It's very helpful. Mhm. All right. So next we'll roll to once again, we always at the end of a race want to sort of verify the whole event. So we're going to check our number of DQs. You can look in this column to see how many you have for that particular event. Match it up with whatever the ref starter sheets say. Sometimes the console worker will mark DQs on his sheet as well, or her. And I also could look at, DQ slips, how many that I have, and see if it matches what we have here. Same with the no-shows. Just make sure you have all your no-shows covered, and you have to go back and check if they don't line up. Now, once your event is done, including any DQs you have, um, we're going to go either to the list or the score button. The score button is used when we have a final or a time final event. We're ready to score and award places, final places. It's great out here because I am on a prelim event up here. Whereas if I click to the final event in 51, it will brighten up and we'll just hit score and we'll get the final results there. Now, if I am in a prelim or a non-scoring event, we will hit list. It won't let you hit score. It doesn't give you that option. And so if I hit list let me go back to make sure I was on the prelim. If I want to go to if I hit list for a time final event, it just won't score it. I mean, it'll show you the results, but you're going to want it to score so you'll have points assigned. So for 51 prelims, I want list because I want to be able to announce that this particular top 8, 16, whatever it is. I want to be able to put a split sheet out. I want to post results, finalize the prelim event. And so as you see here, it was a multi-age group event for 51. So we've got them separated by age groups. And this is what will go out. Well, first of all, we'll always check to make sure we don't have potential swim offs, which are usually shown by an asterisk. Like if you have a tie for 8th, it'll alert you to that. But this will go out to the table to the scratch table so that kids can look at this and see if they need to scratch, they can mark that. Okay. Now, if you're running Meet Mobile, you simply want to, once again, I can't go too far on this, but if just go up in the Meet menu to Meet Mobile, let me do it. But it'll just show you a little box, and it says at the bottom of the box, activate Meet Mobile. There's a check mark, and if you activate that check mark, then all of your information as it comes into Meet Manager is going to go to Meet Mobile. If I'm not mistaken, as soon as it comes in Meet Manager, it'll forward that, not as final results, but it will show up in Meet Mobile. It might not show all the heats for that particular event yet. And then once you hit list or score at the end of the event, it'll modify that to, your final results, which should be correct or whatnot. We get a lot of situations where, oh, the time is wrong and whatever they said they went this on Meet Mobile, but it's not matching up. Well, that's usually just because we haven't verified all the times yet and finalized the event. You don't have to send Meet Mobile out early, as in when they come in, or anytime before you list or score. You can wait until after the event, and then once you're done listing or scoring, you can hit Control M, and that will send that event to Meet Mobile. Some people like to wait until the end of an entire session. You can send the whole session through this particular Meet Mobile. It'll give you an option to send a whole session there. So I like to get the information out as soon as possible. I've just personally been in situations where I'm not where my child is swimming and I want to get information as soon as I can. So I'd rather have that and deal with the few issues that come up with people reporting incorrect times that are just not verified, than having to wait an extra, 15 minutes to see what he swam. Results and scores, if you want to print a complete results report from either a session, day, or the whole meet, you just go here and you've got tons of options of how you want that displayed. If we're doing all the events and you select all, you've got these tabs down here. You can do single column, you can do whatever, single, double, triple. Um, some options here that you may want to review. Same for heat sheet and shike sheet. If you want to put in your meet records, you can do it there. If you want to include entry times in the results, you can, whether there were no shows, the codes, which are helpful to the coaches if you have that. There's also there's so many reports you can do. You can create a report for a team that has all the kids who got DQ'd and the reason they got DQ'd. So it's just a matter of going into the reports menu and looking through there and finding what works for you. You can even include the team scores within your final results. Um, all right. And award labels. Going to the labels menu. Award labels here. Obviously, you'll need the labels, and usually in printers they go in upside down, but depends on the printer you got. And if you're, say, wanting to print all of them, simply go to select all. And this is important here that you select your whatever. Once again, going back to meet letter, it'll be in there. We're always having to go back to the meet letter on our labels just to double check, because you don't want to, another area you don't want to make mistakes on, because if they start putting labels on medals and people start walking away with them, then and they're incorrect, it's you're probably going to want to leave town. So individual places there, make sure that's correct. Relay places, if there's senior events, I guess you'd have maybe a different designation for that. You can actually print labels by event, which will have first through whatever for event one, then event two, or you can do it if you just want to do it by team, like print all the labels for a particular team, followed by all the labels for another team. You can do that, or you can just choose the team up here if you want to do it for one particular team. Okay. And also setting up the size of your label. We usually use 3x10s. Avery, I think it's 5160 if I'm not mistaken. And then also once you finish the meet and you want to prepare your results to send to the teams, you go. Of course, you can create your results PDF that has all the. After a meet, I always do single column, cumulative and subtracted splits, which I did not go over, but I will do that. Okay. You'll go into, let's see, I'll select all results. Go into this particular tab and you can give it any of these choices here, but always do cumulative and subtracted on the very final results that will go out to the teams and maybe sent to the web somewhere. And but you could do just cumulative or just subtracted if you have a reason to do so. But the results file, this is the file that'll be a zip file and will go to the teams that they will import into their team management software. And so you go to file, you go to export, and results for blah, 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 whatever it is. Click there. And when you send this meet file to teams, it will include all the results from every team. If you want to break it down by team, you can, but if I had done this for Summer Champs, it would have been 17 different files. When they import this file into their team management software, it is going to simply cherry pick their team and kind of forget the rest, whether it imports it or not. It basically doesn't recognize it, or it won't be a part of their system. So yeah, it makes it so much easier than having to create a separate file for each team. But if you're bored and you're nice and you want to do that, send them just their file. That's okay. All right, so prelim final meets. As I said, it's remarkably easy once everything is done properly in the setup and in running the prelims. So if you sort of imagine this, you've run your prelims, kids have scratched are intended to, whatever they intended to scratch, we have put that on the scratch sheets. And on the scratch sheets, if you're an admin official and you have these out, everybody does it differently. Some people even do scratches online. But what I like to do is every 15 or 20 minutes kind of wander over to those sheets and make sure that kids will, you know, don't mess things up. They're usually pretty good. I'll put a sign out, make sure you use a ruler, put out a couple rulers. I use pencils, um, and so, but if you see one that's line goes through, it's erased, sorta, well, then you might have to check with the coach or the swimmer to find out if they are actually scratched, because that's really important when you get to finals. If someone is not included that is intended to be included, it can shake things up a little bit. Same the other way around. So you want those as accurate as you can. In this particular meet, we kind of loosen up the rules a little bit. We let everyone scratch any event they want to until 30 minutes after prelims. Because if you have a 30-minute limit from when they are announced, they're going to come up after 30 minutes. So in a relatively low-key meet as compared to, say, some national or sectionals or something like that, I'll be lenient with that and just let them. I'd rather, let them scratch later. And the advantage of having a 30-minute limit after the prelim results are announced is that everybody early on knows who's going to be in the final and who's not. But, I have to give that up in order to let kids scratch pretty much any time during the prelims and right afterwards. So what we do for scratches is we go into the seating menu. Here again, it's only gonna let me go so far. And we would have to choose one event at a time, which I'm not able to do here. But anyway, if we clicked on whatever, we would go to Scratchpad. And it's not gonna let me do that because I can't check on any event here because they're done. But when I click on Scratchpad, it's just gonna list all the swimmers that were in that event, their times, and you can do it alphabetically or by time. And so you look at your scratch sheet and you find, maybe there's 2, 3, 4 swimmers scratched, and you simply put a check mark in the scratch column on the scratch pad next to their name. And then you save that, double check always, if not triple check. And then once you're done with that, you're seeding it just like you would any other meet, whether it's prelims, time finals, whatever. You would simply go to your reports. I'm sorry. You would go to select all, or unless it's just one event, let's say you have scratches in, you would choose that particular event and then go start seeding. And when it seeds, you're done. You're ready to run your heat sheet. Um, when you run your heat sheet, you can do it from here or from back on the main menu, but meet program, let's just take a look at that for, say, one of the final sessions. Friday evening finals, we'll go select all. Um, and here, actually, in this case, I won't go into detail on this right now, but for the 400 medley relay for 9 and 10, what we decided to do there was to have the fastest heat of each of those events swim in the finals. And then the other the other heats were in the prelims. So there's a way in the session set up to do that. Rather than go through that and take 5 minutes, if you really want to know, you can email me and or call me and I'll tell you how we do that. In the session setup, we had it to where 9 and 10, one heat would be first, and then we would go with event 1, 2, 3, and so on. So once we run this heat sheet, and I'll go back to, we definitely want to review that and make sure it has everything that we want in it. But it's important when we run finals that there are certain things that do need to be included. So in this particular case, sometimes we need to run single column, not too often. Double, some people like double. I like coaches like double. I'll make double column heat sheets for coaches because it gives them a little more room to write down splits. Usually the referee and starter will do one event per page so that they can mark those, DQs, no shows, and the event closeout at the bottom of the heat sheet and turn those in. Um, Triple column is typically for officials and for the heat sheet that I will send out to the different teams to distribute. And then in the program, you may want to put your records, if there are particular qualifying times that need to be shown, maybe for flags or seniors, whatnot. Um, don't really need to include entry times for finals. It kind of puts a lot of times up there. It's a little confusing. If you have a meet that you have events with no entries, it's sometimes good to show those because otherwise it looks like you're skipping it or it was left out of the heat sheet. For finals, really important to check qualifying alternates because that will show the two alternates. For example, when you have an A final and a B final, it will show the 17th place and the 18th place for those kids to be on standby in case there is a no-show. You can choose heat start times, which will show per heat. Meet manager will do that, as I mentioned earlier, what time is expected to start. And that is not a schedule, that is a guideline. Try to make that point clear. I think most people kind of get the message on that so that they're not, using that to, tell them what time to show up. Empty lanes just gives you a little more space throughout the heat sheet. And there are other options, whether you want to put relay names and so forth on there. Okay. All right, so that concludes prelim finals. Now we got a few more minutes. We can just go over some sort of variety of topics here I thought might be good. Everybody sort of runs on a particular license at at meets, and I have a few on this computer, I believe. We go down to license management. And this one, the active license is Planet Swim, but if I go work in Gainesville, I'll maybe Gator Swim Club, UNF, whatever. And different licenses will have different options on them. In addition to just the basic program, if you go to the help and then about, these are the options that are available for a license, which some of which are as costly as the program itself. Um, but you can choose not to have award labels, but most people will want to, and entry deck cards, like typically for relays. Timing console interface is essential if you're going to be connected to a timing console. It allows the timing console to talk with the computer. Without this, you're just taking whatever data you have and you're typing it in manually. Alpha Scoreboard interface is used by a lot of systems to be able to take information from Meet Manager and shoot that to the board, such as swimmers' names and teams and so forth. Pro Network is when you have multiple computers at a meet that are communicating with one another. Usually have you want your main source computer, but you may have situations where I'm sure at national meets they have, what, 5 or 6, if not more, linked into one another. Someone might be doing relays, someone may be doing DQs, someone may be doing media, whatever it might be. Not everybody has the privilege to change the data or adapt the data. That those permissions are given in the network session in the file menu. And then if you're using Dolphins as a backup, you can get that option. We don't typically do that. Or for open water, if you have a button finish, you would need that as well. So just a few things you can get, but like I think it's the network option is $500 or something like that. So most of the clubs around here probably don't use that anyway. If you ever want to do a swim off, this is kind of interesting. We'll go to events again because I came up with a little sample there. All right. So in this particular case, let me see what event it was. Swim off is event 302. Okay. So I'm going to go back to run menu, event 302, swim off. And this is a prelim final event. And it obviously happened in the prelims. And here again, hypothetical. We have 2 heats actually. Let me get rid of this. And in the first heat, here are all the times, 230.01 down to 230.08. And then in the second heat, they also had someone go 230.08. So once again, fictional times. I do a list and I get the report and it alerts me, oh, we have a tie for 8th, says swim off required. Okay. So we have to go back, and there's a couple ways that you can create a swim off. One is by going to the swim off menu. It's a little more automatic. You click on swim off and it asks you, do you want to create a swim off event for 302? If you say yes, it will just create 402, and which I've already done. Or you could just do it manually. You can go into the events menu and just go add, and you can add a 402. But if you do it this way, it probably just saves a little bit of time. But in this case, you would have actually another event, and we have it down here, 402. And then I would have to, these names don't show up automatically. I just have to go into adjust, as I did earlier, show eligible athletes, and then I would just need to drag those two swimmers into whichever lanes I would want them to swim in. And that's just a random, hold on. Let me get rid of that. A random selection, whether who's going to be in 4 or 5. Okay, and then they'll run their swim off. And usually I'll print out a heat sheet to give to various entities, timers, uh, ref starter, et cetera, stroke and turn. And in this case, Charlie touched her out by 1/100th. Okay. So then I would go back into the original event, which was 302. Yeah, prelims. And I would go to JD, judge's decision. Okay. Click on that. Do you want to break the ties? I'll just say no, because I want to do it myself. So here it shows Sarah's eighth and Charlie's eighth. And if I'm not mistaken, Charlie won. Let's just say Charlie won. So I will JD her place as eighth, and I will JD Sarah as ninth. Okay. And I will accept that. Okay. And then when I go to print the list again, hopefully, yep, it put Charlie as eighth and Sarah as ninth, even though they had the same time. And you got the J here, which shows it was done by a judge's decision. So Sarah would be the first alternate. Charlie would be actually in the final. Okay. Then we have meet merge is simply a function that if I'll give you an example. For the Holloman meet, Sandra Santana, she works with us a good bit. I've asked her to come, and she will have a separate computer, and I will ask her to work the relays. And by that, I mean I will take the database that I have, I will put it identically on her computer. And when the relays come in, it takes a little time to add those names because a lot of them won't be in or there'll be changes. And the reason I'm doing that is because we give out awards 2 or 3 times during the meet, and I want to have that information ready to go very quickly. So she will take care of the relays, and then she will create a meet merge file. So when she's finished, we go to export. We'll go to meet, let's see, results for meet manager of the same meet. Okay. And she will create a file by clicking on that. And then I will take that file and I'll go to my main computer and I will import merge results, meet manager to meet manager. And what it does is it looks at every event and it takes the highest level of results. So for example, let's say I have someone doing the girls events on this other computer, and I'm just doing the guys events. And they complete a girls event, they bring it over into my computer. It sees that my computer has no information on the girls event. The higher level is going to be the event with the results, so it's going to take that and update my database with those results. So it's pretty handy to have that when you kind of have a lot going on and could use a second person to, excuse me, assist you with any results. Records, just very quickly, have those here. That will come in the events setup and into the records here. We did have records for this meet, not all meets do. And these are typically imported from the previous year. This can all be done manually if needed. But once you get either at the end of a meet, or sometimes I need to update the records between prelims and finals because we want the new record that was set in prelims to show in the finals heat sheet, I will just click on update up here and it will update everything from the prelims. But if it's the end of the meet, it'll update. See, we've already updated for 2025 meet. So when I get to next year, I'll simply create an export file, click here, and I can export a file into my 2026 database, import it into that computer, and it will have the records for us ready to go. Once again, you can choose to print those as a report or in the psych sheet, heat sheet, pretty much anywhere you have that option. And then qualifying times and standards, same thing, kind of works the same way. We didn't have any qualifying times for this meet, but for example, if you have an LSC meet, such as a flags or seniors or whatever it may be, they have those as a qualifying times file, and you can simply import those into the meet for those particular meets. Like I said, working very similarly to your records. If you ever want to combine events, this happens seemingly much more often in summer league than anywhere else because there might be so few kids in each event. So we need to say combine 11, 12 girls, 11, 12 boys into one event. Sometimes we'll even combine different age groups into a single race or a single heat. So to combine events, what we'll do is go to the seating menu. And I actually have a couple events to show how that works. I think down towards the bottom. Okay, so we've got event 303 is a girls 50 free, and boys are 304. And I only have bar here. I only have 3 boys in this event and 4 girls in 303. So instead of swimming them as separate events, I want to combine them into the same events, but I still want them to, show each other separately in the results. All right. So what I will do here is go into combine. Okay, menu up top. Now the source event number and target event number. The target event number is where I am sending the entries to. Like I've got to pick an event that's going to be, it's either going to be 303 or 304. I always pick the lower event. So my target event is 303. The source is where I'm bringing swimmers in from to bring to that target. So it's going to be 304. And I'm going to choose the first one, which is to take the entries out of 304 and put them into 303. Okay. So when I do that, somehow or another, I got off here. 303 here, 304 here, and we'll go okay. And it says the genders don't match, right? Because one's girls, one guys. Change the gender, it's going to change it to mixed, all right? So yes, all right. So it first gives me the 3 entries in 304. Which ones do I want to copy over? I want to copy all of them over, and I want to save that, okay? And then, hopefully it will let me do this. I'm going to go to 303. All right. And I need to seed that first. It's already seeded previously being a girls event, but let's seed that if it'll let me do it. All right. It says it's already been seeded. Yes, it has as a girls event, but I want to seed it again because it's girls and boys. All right. So then from there, we've got all the entries in that 303. I want to go into the run menu and I want to go into adjust so I can, move these kids around because we don't really want in a combined event to have girls and guys sort of intermix. We want them separately. So, pardon me, I need to go to my correct event. 303 is what we called it. And we're going to go into adjust. And then, okay, so we've got our 7 swimmers, 3, whatever it was, 3 girls, 4 guys, vice versa. And I'm going to move them around so that, they fit. Typically, when you have 7 swimmers in an 8-lane pool, you're going to have a lane between the girls and the guys, okay? So I just need to start kind of moving them around, move some guys down towards the bottom and the girls up towards the top. Okay, we've got another guy here. All right, so I've got the 4 girls here, 3 guys here. Now, if I want to do further seeding, I can. I don't know the rules on this, but if I have 3 guys and they all have seed times, I want to put the fastest guy in the middle of the guys, and then the second fastest guy towards the middle of the pool, and third fastest guy here. So that's just the way I do it. Like I said, I don't know if there are rules on that, but maybe you referee guys would know that. Okay, and then I would just save it, and then that 303 is good to go. It's a mixed event now. There's nobody in, there are no heats, nobody in the boys event. So we would just skip that. Okay. So that's a mixed event. If you ever need to renumber events, and this happened recently when we had a meet that was set up to run as one session, all age groups, one session, but it got changed to a two-session meet because it was a little larger than we thought. So what I had to do is go in the events menu, had to change all the event numbers, okay? All the 10 and unders were, say, in the morning and 11 overs later, vice versa. And so to renumber, what I did was I increased all the event numbers to, instead of 1 through whatever, let's just say 50, I changed the event number, wanted to change them to 101 to 150. So I wanted to increase the event numbers by 100, okay, the offset amount, starting with event number 1, finishing event 50. So that changed all the event numbers to 101 to 150 instead of 1 to 50. Then I could go back and I could renumber. I had to do this manually. I had to renumber the events so that the 10 and unders were in the morning and the 11 and overs were in the second session. Okay. Because if I tried to renumber them and they're already 1 through 50, it's not going to allow me to do that. I'll be combining events on top of other events and it won't do that. Okay. So it's just a little handy tool to make things go a little bit clearer. One little thing, especially for the refs here, when we want to run a footer that has your event closeout on it, and I'm doing that in a meet program. What we do is it's actually an image file. It's a little small image, longitudinal image there, and we always click on logos and footer. And what that does is it takes that image, and you can do this with logos. A lot of big meets have sponsor logos at the bottom. You just click on logos and footer, and if I run a heat sheet there, it will, voila, come out with the event closeout on the bottom. Okay, and you can put any image file there or a number of files. You can put up to 5 different file logos or whatever it may be in that position. Okay. Come on. And the last thing, if we ever want to run a combined events meet, as in a pentathlon, then we would go into our events menu, and this would be a pentathlon might be where you add up times, or there might be points assigned to each particular event. But you have a certain number of events. Obviously, pentathlon would be 5 that you're going to create results for based on combined time or combined points, and that would be in the combined events menu. You would simply create an event that would actually represent 5 different events in the meet. And those will come up over here, but you've got a combined event here, you've got age group, what kind of pentathlon, whatever it might be there. And so that's how you would do that. All right. That is all. Is anybody left on here? 12. Awesome. All right. So that's everything I had. Look at that. We finished 1 minute in advance of 9 o'clock. So let me get you all back. Stop share. All right. Any questions, comments? Do you need me to put my goggles back on? Yes.
Okay, I am a small fish in a big pond. Our Hy-tek person from our high school team left. She moved. I had 45 minutes at Starbucks, and I got this. I'm in a pickle.
What is that?
It's a little flash drive.
Oh, okay.
So I learned a lot tonight. It's like it made me familiar with Hy-tek, but is there a Hy-tek for dummies? Because I am a complete novice.
Yeah, that's me. The dummy part, at least. No, I'll be happy to help you. You're new and getting started, and you really there's not much out there. You're in a unique situation where you're just starting. Do you know what's on that thumb drive?
I've played around with it a little bit, but this is from 2022, 2023, and she was running it offline. I actually had our coach purchase a new license for our school. So I'm able to import and play with some of it, but just completely running heat sheets to all of it.
Yeah.
I'm like,
yeah. I think what we can do is I'm happy to work with you on that.
super.
Whether it's by phone or if we need to do it, we could do it here. We could do it. We could meet some. What high school are you with?
For Indiana. My daughter
Okay.
typically comes for IL for Mary Bowman most of the year. And then this is her second year with high school with Coach Bell. at
Okay.
Furniture Beach.
Do you have Hy-tek on a computer?
I do.
Okay. So when you kind of are in that position where you're ready to sort of host your first meet, get things going, we'll talk and we'll get you going. So
Very,
we'll figure out how to do it. You won't be left out in the cold, and we'll take care of you.
I appreciate that.
Okay. Very good.
And if it makes you feel any better, he talked about a whole bunch of stuff you don't have to ever have to worry about doing high school tonight.
True.
Right?
True. And you know, doing work with Hy-tek, it's not like you just get it after a couple meets or whatever. It's a lifetime process, it seems like. And it just takes time, and everybody's going to make mistakes, and there's a learning curve. And
Sure.
I think it's great that you're doing it. And everybody goes through that. It's regardless of their which level of official or whatever they're at. Same with referee, starters, even timers. So yeah, it's great that you're doing it, and we'll get you going.
Very cool. Thank you.
Oh,
Sure.
just to let you know, if you have to enter a diving event, it won't be automatic. Usually the coaches will give you the scores and you just manually enter them, and Hy-tek will score it for you.
Right. Excellent, Janice.
Anytime, Scott.
Yes, ma'am. Any other questions or comments? All right.
Peace.
Well, we'll be sending you a test and just need to turn it in by the morning. Tiago, since you failed the last time, I expect you to do better. No, I'm kidding. Tiago's a genius.
Yeah, but he won trivia, remember?
That's
Does that
true.
get him bonus
All
points on
right.
the test?
All right. All right. You're excused. You're okay. All
Hey,
right.
God, thank you so much for your time and your volunteering with us and able to teach at every time and any time. And we always learn a lot from you, even the ones that use it and don't use it. There's always something little that you're teaching us, and it just comes very naturally. So I appreciate you extending this to all the SJAC officials and all the officials in Florida. And keep on coming more. We will keep on coming.
Great. Thank you for coming. I appreciate that.
Thanks
All
as
right.
always, Scott.
Yes, sir.
It's better to learn this while we're not on 100-degree weather and cramping on a tent, Scott.
Yes. Feels much better in here. Today was a gorgeous day after it rained. It was nice and cool. All right. You guys have a good night. Thank you for coming. See you on deck.
All right.
Bye,
See you around,
everyone.
Scott.
Bye-bye.